So hello, my name is Rob and this is Cattle Rabbit Scale Model Studios, and in this video I thought we'd take a look at something that isn't actually available anymore and I wanted to talk about it. This is the Space Marine Terminator Chaplain Tarentus from the Warhammer Commemorative series. I've had this ages sitting on my shelf and you can't actually, I don't think you can get this miniature anymore. I did check the website and I couldn't find it, so I kind of wanted to talk about this model in particular and why Games Workshop don't actually do it anymore. So the other day I was flicking through my Dark Angels codex and I was just kind of like gathering ideas. I tend not to read codexes, I tend to look at the pictures, I'm very much a picture guy, and I saw this little interrogator chaplain and I thought, wow, that really looks familiar. And I actually forgot that I bought this guy ages ago when it came out, and it's almost like the spitting image of an interrogator chaplain or a chaplain in Terminator armour, which also Games Workshop don't seem to list on their website anymore. It really baffled me that for a model that was so spot on, it's strange that they just don't make more of these and actually have it as a dedicated line. But once again, you know, this is all, there might be a good reason for it, but I just thought it was really worth mentioning and kind of having a look at the model if you didn't get your hands on it. So Terminator Chaplain Tarentus, I think I'm saying that right. There's a few things to note on this model. It's not very modular. It isn't easy to build, there's no glue required, and it says that you don't need clippers. If you saw my Stormcast video I recently did, you know I had a tough time with these easy to build things with no clippers. I found it quite, I guess, frightening to try and push out some of these parts. This is literally the polar opposite, and I'll explain kind of why. But let's take a look at the sprue to begin with. Really nice detail. As you can see, there's a sculpted base. It always aggs me a little bit that they sculpt part of the foot on the base. I know why they do it. Obviously for stability, you can just push the pins in as part of the moulding process, but it is frustrating. Obviously you've got two halves of the gun. The shoulder pad looks like it's separate. However, I'll talk about that a bit more in a minute. But everything's there. He looks great. I think he's got some great, you know, like iconography on him, and he's probably really easily adapted into, I guess, any chapter if you wanted to. Once again, I love these little sculpted bases, but the foot, I don't know, it really annoys me. As for the instructions, there really isn't too much to this guy. He's only 9 pieces, one of them being the base, so he does go together quite well. However, there are a few points that I did want to point out to people. If you have got your hands on this model and you maybe, like me, work in sub-assemblies, he's got pros and he's got cons. But overall, I wish GW still made this model because I think it would be really good to have a Terminator chaplain. However, it could be that with 10th edition on the horizon, something even bigger and better is coming along, who knows. But I just thought, you know, so there we go. So I'm just going to pop him together and I'm just going to stop where I kind of notice things. The first thing you'll kind of notice here that I've managed to pop out the smaller bits. It's the bigger bits this time around that are really seem to be quite tough to pop out onto the contact points. Obviously the last thing I want to do is bend any pins or get anything out of line. So I probably, you know, just putting a little bit of force on it. Maybe I wasn't forceful enough, maybe I'm being overly cautious. However, I did opt to go for a hobby knife as it just seemed a little bit easier just to run my knife just along them contact points, pop them out. Obviously, knife clippers would work just as well, and then twist the rest of them out. So another thing that I did notice here, which was a little bit disappointing, and it's very minor, but some of the cloak detail hasn't been sculpted. It's just like a flat piece of plastic. I remember when Soul Wars came out for Age of Sigmar, the underside of the Gryph-hound was completely flat. Stuff like that really annoys me, especially when you've just had a model like the Lion and, you know, everything's nicely sculpted, all the folds are there. Even if they do double up on themselves, as you can kind of see on this little one here. For a model that's part of what they call a commemorative series, it seems, you know, I guess from a painting perspective, it's a little bit aggy once again that they've taken this shortcut. Another thing that I also noticed which frustrates the hell out of me. For as nice as these little kits are, and I don't mind a static pose with how it all goes together, like you've got the two halves of the legs pushed together, but the shoulder pad that is separate pushes in via a pin. So in actual fact, you would have to, if you wanted to change the shoulder pad, probably cut the pin away, load it with either green stuff or milliput or something like that, and then push your new shoulder pad into it, because otherwise there's actually no space for it to adhere to, which is a little bit frustrating. They could have just made this rounded with maybe like a little notch where it sits in. I get it's an easy to build, and if you live by the sword, you die by the sword, but it's still frustrating. Now, the other thing is the base. I like these sculpted bases that GW do. I think they've got a lot of character. The detail's always really, really good. But the problem is you have to commit to them. Because, and what I mean by that is, the way I'm doing my Dark Angels bases, you can see on my Primaris Chaplain here, they're just really plain desert bases. Now this guy's got like rocks, cables, a bit of metal with the Aquila on. It's all rather quite fancy, and it's just going to stand out a little bit more. I do wish that the foot was separate and that it would be just, you know, he could just push into the pins. So maybe you could make your own base and, you know, make it more in keeping with your army. Obviously, I always find consistency is key when I do projects like this. It's just a little bit, you know, I don't mind a rock here and there, but very frustrating because he will stand out. Now, I've got most of my model in sub-assemblies here, and this is probably where I will work up to. One thing I do really like, how the head just pushes in. That way you can keep it nice and separate to paint. I can always appreciate design philosophy like that. However, on the underside, the way this goes together is, if you look, there's actually a pin that runs through the middle of him, and you've kind of got this weird little loop, as you can see, and the pin sits through it, and then he pushes on, which obviously, if you are wanting to glue these bits together, frustratingly, you have to kind of build the whole thing, which is a nightmare to work around. Once again, sub-assemblies is the name of my game. So what I will probably need to do, and I actually did do it, I guess obviously doing this voiceover after the video, I actually cut the pins either side to kind of make like a little clip, and he actually just pushes in there, and it works really, really well. But aside from that, I really like this model. I do wish they made this kit available, because I think people could also do some really wonderful things with it. I'm going to put him on the spinny thing, and I am going to carry on talking for the minute. Once again, here he is. You know, really, really nice detail. He's almost like a spit of the Terminator Chaplain, so it's just a little bit baffling. But once again, with 10th edition around the corner, hopefully we'll see maybe like a kit that will kind of replace this, and maybe I'll eat my words in a couple of months' time. But there we have it. As always, if you've made it this far, thanks for watching. Did you pick this guy up? Did you do any conversions? Do you know what? I'd love to see what people have done with this model that's a little bit different from the base model itself. So if you do, go into the About section on my page. My Instagram's on there, and I'll leave a link in the description below. Do shoot me over some pictures of your Terminator Chaplain, as I really, really like Chaplains actually. I think they're quite cool. As always, if you enjoyed this, don't forget to like and subscribe. And that's it from me in this one. I'll see you all next time. God bless and take care.